And I remember all the bosses used to say, hey, we need to have a relationship with the media. No, you don't. You don't need to have a relationship with the media. The conservatives, they don't need to have a relationship with the media. So I think it has something to do with that interview and then them coming out and editing the way they did. Here's a little bit of the interview with Vassy the other night. Clinton Jaws, please subscribe. My children would appreciate it. CTV, they're in big trouble. They're in so much trouble that I honestly don't even know how they're going to get out of it. The conservatives came out today, and you won't believe what they said. There's absolutely no way they can come back from this. That's what I think. What did they do that was so bad, Clint? I'll tell you quickly. They took a piece of video of Poilievre speaking, and they changed the words that came out of his mouth. Watch this.
That's why it's time to put forward a motion for a carbon tax election.
It's time to put forward a motion. It's time to put forward a motion for a carbon tax election. This is what CTV. I hope I wasn't saying CBC. This is what CTV changed it to.
That's why we need to put forward.
No, that's not what he said. He didn't say we need to.
That's why we need to put forward a motion.
A motion, and then they shut it off. They made it so it looked like he was against dentistry. CTV actually did this on purpose. I know about editing. You did it on purpose. And you guys probably don't even really understand what I'm getting at. The point is, they took video footage of him speaking, cut stuff out of what he said, and put stuff into his mouth, what they wanted him to say. They created the words that he never said to make the conservatives look bad. So now what? What's Pierre going to do about this? This is what they're going to do about it. Sebastian Skamsky. It's the death of CTV. Listen to this. They need to acknowledge the malicious nature of their editing and not merely dismisses this as a mistake or error. We will not engage with them. Immediately, everybody on the conservatives will refrain from engaging with CTV News. No interviews, statements, or offering any form of commentary. They need to acknowledge the full scope of their actions. They want CTV to tell the world how terrible they are, that they did it on purpose. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to say that. They're going to say they just made a mistake by accident. But it wasn't by accident. And they're not going to admit to it. And it kind of makes me sad because I like Vassy. It's the only one I like so far on CTV. I dig her. But she's not going to be... It doesn't look like she's going to be interviewing any conserves in the future. It's all going to be NDP, liberal. They have banned... Conservatives so far have banned the CBC. And now they're banning the CTV. And as a police officer, when I was a cop, I wished we would have did that. The media was so hard on the RCMP. So hard on the RCMP. And I'm not even talking about anything past the year 2020. I'm talking about all before that. They were never for us. Me and my buddy used to always talk to each other. Like, why are they reporting that? That's not true. That's not what we did. It didn't happen like that. They were always way off. And I remember all the bosses used to say, hey, we need to have a relationship with the media. No, you don't. You don't need to have a relationship with the media. The conservatives, they don't need to have a relationship with the media. They're on nobody's side but the liberals when it comes to anything. Anything. That's it. That's the only people they like. They hate everybody else. So I don't mind that they did this, and I kind of like it. And I was watching Vassy last night with Scheer on it. And I was actually thinking, oh my God, they're not going to come back on here. That's kind of what entered my mind. I didn't know anything about this. So I think it has something to do with that interview and then them coming out and editing the way they did. Here's a little bit of the interview with Vassy the other night.
I have to push back on some of the things you said there, respectfully, Mr. Scheer, because the carbon tax is not quadrupling. It increases by $15 a ton as of April the 1st. No political leader has said that they want repeat offenders back out on the streets. You can criticize the policies, but it's not fair to say that they have said, let's put the repeat offenders on the streets. Just 1 second, let me finish my question, and then you can go right ahead. But more to the point, what they have criticized your government for is what they say will happen, your parties for, pardon me, is what they say will happen if your government. I'm going to put the specifics to you. Mr. Singh this week said that a conservative government would take away your pensions and take away health care.
Of course
you
not.
can answer very plainly right here if that is the case. Do you plan to change pensions for Canadians, to remove them in any way, or to cut health care transfers to the provinces?
Of course not, Vashi. But let's take a look at what you said, because I've got to fact check you on that. The NDP voted in favor of Justin Trudeau's legislation changing Canada's bail policies to force judges to be more lenient on dangerous and repeat offenders. That
always
had
been like
the
that.
effect of releasing more dangerous criminals into our community. That is what caused the crime crisis that is going on in so many communities across the country.
It's always
Justin
been like
Trudeau
that.
also, supported by the NDP, brought in policies that used your tax dollar to fund dangerous opioids being distributed in our communities. And police forces across the country are citing those two factors as to why they're finding fentanyl more and more, why people who are addicted are trading government-funded narcotics for even more dangerous drugs. So, you know, this isn't... The problems facing Canadians didn't come in like a cold front like the weather. They are a direct result of Justin Trudeau's policies. That's why this Liberal government is unpopular. The Liberals aren't unpopular right now because Justin Trudeau has bad breath or ran over your neighbor's dog. He's unpopular because he doubled housing costs, devalued people's paychecks, and unleashed this crime crisis on
Mr.
Canadians.
Scheer, I'm not abdicating responsibility from the government.
You asked the question.
Yeah, but I can.
You asked the question about why we should listen to the other parties. The other parties, the NDP, agree with the Liberals. They would do more of the same. They are pushing the government to do even more of the same types of things that cause the problems that Canadians are suffering from. So that's why we're saying, look, if they are so sure, about their policies, let's put it to the Canadian people and let them decide.
Okay, but all I'm saying is when, for example, you say that they want repeat offenders out on the street, and you reference that legislation that was aimed at addressing a court decision that talked about an overrepresentation of minorities in the prison system and in the justice system, that legislation was intended to address that court decision. You are right to point out
being very
that
generous.
No, and I'm not finished. You're right to point out, Mr. Scheer, that it did have a negative impact, and that many law enforcement representatives, as well as justice system representatives, came forward and said, even local politicians in BC, I went hard at the justice minister at the time. However, there has been new legislation that was introduced at the behest of premiers across the country that is meant to address the exact same thing that you're talking about. So it's not entirely fair the way that you're characterizing it.
Well, you are being extremely generous, Vashi, as with your interpretation of that. There is nothing forcing the Liberal government to be that generous to dangerous and repeat offenders. And there's the so-called legislation they brought in afterwards aimed at addressing it. Doesn't actually do it. And we've got that feedback directly from law enforcement and Crown prosecutors across the country. We're talking about people who steal cars in the morning, get arrested. Because of these new bail changes,
their wives.
They are released on the same day, and they often reoffend
every
in
time.
the very same 24-hour period.
Every time.
It's not my opinion.
It's a fact.
I'm not sure why you want to have that generous of an interpretation of events. The fact of the matter is,
it's not
Trudeau
generous. I'm just saying it's not as easy as you paint it.
Made those changes.
That interview, that really pissed off Scheer. And I think that interview, combined with CTV putting words inside the mouth, false words inside the mouth of Pierre, the Conservatives, they're just like, you know what? CTV, bye-bye.